Welcome to the T-Pac Arcade. Today's game is Crisis Force for the Nintendo Famicom. In this 1991 shoot-'em-up from Konami, the descendants of a soldier from the lost civilization of Mu pilot the Oro-wing spacecraft to fight 7 ancient monsters, because something something Atlantis, something something Destiny, something something saving the Earth or whatever. It's an ambitious plot for a game where you fly around shooting lasers and stuff, but I'm just here to, well, shoot lasers and stuff. So the game is broken into 7 levels that take you through all sorts of themed locales, from cityscapes, oceans, and volcanic mountain ranges to deserts, caverns, and tombs. And to complement the waves of enemy monsters reminiscent of robots and stone golems, each stage has specific gauntlets to deal with, like block walls you have to destroy, dead-end caves you can only pass through using disappearing portals, fire trails lining the ground, Pharaoh-head battleships full of turrets, and spinning monoliths that reflect lasers across the screen, or as I like to call them, dominoes of death. Each level also culminates in a boss fight, with unique attack patterns and designs reminiscent of ancient Mesoamerican and Egyptian art. Level 7 even has a gauntlet of mini-bosses that you take on one by one as you make your way to the final encounter, like that purple Cyclops who can't even be bothered to get up from his chair, or the thing that looks like a spinning green cookie jar that shoots fireballs at you. And considering how many different enemy attacks and hazards you've got to deal with here, it only makes sense that your Oro-wing ship has plenty of its own special powers. Not only can you collect red or blue gems to strengthen your standard shot or upgrade to wave lasers, but you can actually switch between 3 different ship configurations. The default forward shot one, the backwards one with a rear view spread shot, and the one that can attack laterally on both sides. And on top of that, each configuration has its own type of bomb attack, from an expanding ring of destruction, to a black hole that sucks in enemy fire, to some kind of rotating, teleporting clone thing that makes you reappear somewhere else on screen. I couldn't really tell if I had any control of where I ended up, but as long as my duplicate ships were spinning around blowing stuff up, it didn't really matter. To be honest, I didn't feel like I had any control over these bomb attacks at all. They just sorta triggered on their own whenever they felt like it. Supposedly there's a specific button combination to set off bombs, but maybe my copy of the game is just a little wonky cause it never worked for me. At first I was a little frustrated about burning through my stock of bombs when I didn't even need them, but their habit of going off randomly actually came in handy more often than not, since it got me out of quite a few hectic situations. Maybe my involuntary bombs know better than I do, like how your body involuntarily sneezes to get rid of potentially dangerous foreign entities trying to infiltrate the old sniffer. Except here, the foreign entities are monsters from an ancient civilization, and instead of inflicting you with seasonal allergies, they wanna, bring about the destruction of all humanity or whatever. I love how Crisis Force incorporates a bunch of neat ancient civilization design cues into its graphics, but in a way that the artists weren't afraid to play with and build on. I mean, modeling the final boss after a pharaoh statue is cool enough, but also turning it into a robot with 4 ray gun dragon head appendages? Now that's real art. This game's graphics also get a lot of praise from a technical standpoint, with all the fancy parallax scrolling and multi-sprite effects. And that's because Konami used an enhanced mapper chip for Crisis Force, which even let them pull off some advanced music and sound effects too. To be honest, it sounds just like any other 8-bit Konami game to me, but that's never a bad thing, so I can't complain. The most novel aspect of Crisis Force is the glowing super ship that you transform into once you've collected 5 badge icons. It grants you a short period of invincibility and these huge laser blasts that fly out in every direction. Nothing says overpowered quite like lasers so wide they'd take up 2 parking spots without even feeling bad about it. The challenge level of Crisis Force is near perfect as far as I'm concerned, since it lets you adjust both the difficulty level and the number of lives you get per continue. Granted, I wish it didn't limit the number of continues, and beating the game on easy mode with 5 stock didn't let me see the full ending cutscene or the credit scroll, but at least I still got the full gameplay content, bosses and all. Speaking of which, the bosses are easily my favorite part of this game. The floating power gauntlet guy from the intro sequence, that spiky lizard robot that traps you in different quadrants of the screen with its grappling chains, the sundial thing that shoots fire rings, the multi-phase jewel-encrusted helmet that floats around behind the foreground tiles and turns into a demon heart face once you've dealt enough damage, and of course, the sparkly, spiky, 3-eyed shoulder pad monster that boxes you in by extending its little fingers as if it's testing the water temperature in the pool before jumping in. But he always pulls him back away, so it must be a little too chilly for a dip. If I could change one thing in Crisis Force, I'd try to simplify the whole ship swapping mechanic. It's cool to have 3 different configurations with different weapon loadouts, but it just felt too complicated for the scope of the game. If my brain has to process much more than turn left, turn right, blast monster, that's where a game starts to lose me. That's not to say I didn't make use of all the ship configurations and weapons, they were just a bit more than I wanted to deal with most of the time. Overall, Crisis Force has presented me with my own crisis of figuring out whether or not it's my all-time favorite Famicom exclusive shoot-'em-up, because it's just that good. I mean, if this game were a swimming pool, I'd jump into it 9 times out of 10, no matter what some sparkly, spiky, 3-eyed shoulder pad monster with trepidatious little fingers has to say about it.